So today is March 21st. It has been 4 days since the acts of domestic terrorism that occurred in Atlanta, Georgia, that took the lives of 8 people, 6 of whom were Asian women. I have spent the last week thinking about this every day, processing the emotions that come with unpacking a lot of the racial trauma that the Asian community is realizing we have experienced. And I have tried to film this video, and every time I start, I either get a little bit overwhelmed or there's something new that I realize I have to process and think about. And at some point I thought that I might not even post a video, but I feel like it's really important that people hear about these experiences directly from us, from Asian people, and from specifically Asian women. And especially for my friends and family who are the people who primarily view my things, I feel like it's especially important to hear from someone that you know and someone that you interact with, and know that the people that you love are experiencing racism, even if they don't talk about it. I was born in Orange County, and so I have always been surrounded by Vietnamese people. The high school that I went to was probably like 80% Vietnamese. And so at that time, and even recently when I looked back, I never really thought that I was the recipient of racist behavior because I was always surrounded by people who looked like me. But as I look back on my childhood and my young adult life, I have realized there are so many times where I've been silent and complicit in racist behavior that has occurred against me, whether it was just kind of laughing it off when people asked me why my eyes were so small, or laughing off the funny accents they would make to mock basically my parents or my family members. And even in physical therapy school, having patients call me the Oriental girl, and having male patients ask me if I knew what a happy ending was, and kind of chuckling to themselves, and me, a student, thinking I am not equipped to handle this, and I don't want to jeopardize my career, and silently taking it. And even as an adult clinician going to work now, having patients during this pandemic ask me if I've ever tried bat meat, it's so ridiculous to me sometimes. As Asians, I think we often shy away from calling it what it is, the fact that it is racism and that it is rooted in white supremacy. And we don't like to say that because we fear that it will affect our position as a minority group and how close we are to being white. We don't like to use the word white supremacy because we fear that if we use it, we will lose the protection that the closeness we have to it has given us. And I myself have benefited from my proximity to whiteness. When I go to an affluent neighborhood, I always wear my USC jacket. I always wear it because I know that even me just wearing it has some level of protection for me. Because when I go into an affluent neighborhood, I know that they might see me and know that, or think that I don't belong there, and think that it's okay for them to pull their car up next to me. A small Asian girl, a white man will pull up his car next to mine and come out of his car and ask me, "Are you lost? Do you need some help?" But then he'll see my USC jacket and he'll see the USC PT license plate, and he'll be like, "Oh, you're one of us. Fight on, fight on." And then he'll leave me alone. But if I wasn't wearing that jacket, I sometimes wonder what would happen if I wasn't wearing the thing that made them feel like I was a part of who they are. And sometimes I hate that I
I hate that I know that it'll protect me and I still use it to protect myself, because I know in buying into that idea of like white proximity, it's just adding another foundation for racism and anti-Asian behavior to thrive. I know that in Asian culture, and specifically for Asian women too, we're always taught to keep our head down and to protect ourselves, to not cause trouble. You know, if they say something about you, just take it so that you don't get hurt. And I have acted that way for a lot of my life. And I feel like I'm getting upset right now because I know that our silence, it is complicit in allowing anti-Asian racism to breed an environment that resulted in what occurred on Tuesday, what has been occurring this past year. And like I said, this past week has been a lot of processing and trying to recognize what are the things that I need to unlearn and what are the behaviors that I need to relearn to better protect myself in a way that protects my community at the same time. Asian Pacific Islander hate and racism is not something that is new. It is not something that has just occurred on Tuesday or in this past year. The level of anti-Asian sentiment has been ingrained in the fabric of our society, in the way that the laws were made, in the way that we were viewed when we came and when we stepped foot on this land. The 1875 Page Act that excluded Chinese women from being able to immigrate with their husband, the Chinese Exclusion Act, the Japanese internment camps that were brought in during World War II, all of these things are factors that have breeded anti-Asian hate. And even when they did let us come here, there were still various protests against us. The KKK would burn down Vietnamese shrimping boats in Texas because they simply hated us. They would protest against us. They would call us chinks, gooks, fobs. And all that anti-Asian hate is something that I feel like has been normalized but is never taught in history books, because it is the dark side of the American people that no one wants to talk about. But the minority people who are the victims of it have to live with that every single day. Don't even get me started on how Asians are portrayed in media. Dating back to old Hollywood, Asian men have always been portrayed as the beta male, as kind of not manly enough to protect their women compared to the typically white alpha male. Asian women are always viewed as submissive and subservient and domesticated and agreeable. And when we don't fit the image that they have perpetuated onto us, they kill us. They hurt us because we're not doing what they want. And today, even in 2020 and 2021, when we would think that things have been better, you know, we're a far more intelligent and accepting society, we have people calling the COVID virus, China virus, the chink virus, the kung flu virus. It is so ridiculous. A lot of people think that words don't matter, but words normalize hate. The kung flu virus normalized hatred and discrimination against Asian people. This is the norm now. And if we don't recognize that, if we don't acknowledge that these words have played such a huge role in the increase in anti-Asian rhetoric and anti-Asian hate crimes, we're just lying to ourselves. And this new norm and new mentality is a breeding ground for people to think that we are lesser than them, that our lives are not worth as much as their life, that it's okay to beat us and spit on us while screaming racial slurs at us, that it's okay to attack our grandparents and our parents who are going out for a walk or who are trying to make a living. Our lives are worth so little to them that they think that it's reasonable for a man who's having a bad day to kill us, that our lives are worth so little that a man having a bad day is reason enough to go in and shoot 8 people in cold blood. I mean, as you can see, I'm obviously very tired of it. I'm so tired of having to look behind my shoulder and carry my keys like a knife when I'm just taking a walk. I'm tired of looking under my car and in my back seat when I go to my car at night. I'm tired of worrying about my grandpa when he goes to pick up cans, and worrying about my parents and warning them before they go for a walk. I'm tired of thinking that if I walk into a patient's house today, they might see the color of my skin and they might attack me, and I won't have anywhere to go from there. When someone beats us and attacks us and yells racial slurs at us, when they attack us because of the way we look, they have made it racial. They have made it about the color of our skin, not us. They have made it about the color of our skin. And we need to stop normalizing that racism. We need to stop making it okay. I know that having this conversation with yourself, with others, is really hard. I mean, as you can see, even me trying to articulate these words is difficult, but it's a conversation that we have to have with ourselves. We have to have it with each other so that we can stop normalizing this kind of behavior. There are many times this week that I've looked at the work that I feel like our community has to do, and it is very daunting and is very exhausting. And so in the description box for this video, I've linked a couple of resources, articles that you can read to further educate yourself. And I think that really is the first step in unlearning and relearning our history and who we are. For us here in the Asian community, I know that the events of this past week and this past year have been very hurtful and very heartbreaking. I'll be driving in my car and I'll start crying. My sister has cried during school. My friends have cried during work meetings. I think we're all really processing a lot of suppressed racial trauma that we didn't realize was there. And so I hope that you are taking the time to take care of yourself, taking the time to tend to these wounds that you didn't know were there in the first place. And I hope that you're taking the time to heal before you begin unpacking everything else and unlearning and relearning everything that we need to unlearn and relearn to better our community. Tomorrow is a new day where we all can begin to dismantle, white supremacy and the institutions of racism that have been working against us. And dismantling racism does not just mean dismantling anti-Asian hate and anti-Asian racism, but it means dismantling anti-Black rhetoric, dismantling anti-Latino rhetoric, ensuring that we stop hate crimes against minorities and stop hate crimes against the LGBT community. It means dismantling all systems of hate and oppression and racism. And it is a lot of work, but it's work that has to be done. I think that if we can just act in ways that are compassionate and empathetic towards one another and look at each other through the lens of love and kindness, it would make the world such a better place and a more accepting and loving place. And I hope that is what we are all going to strive to help the world become. Again, I hope that you are all taking care of yourselves during this time. Stay safe, and until next time.